Hi guys, today's book review is a really exciting one I just finished last night and was quite a surprising good read for me, and that is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You may know Taylor Jenkins Reid. She did Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, a few others that are escaping my mind right now, Daisy Jones and the Six, Malibu Rising, but this was my first introduction to her writing, and I picked this up because it was centered around space. It's the space race in the 80s, which I feel is like prime space time. You know, everything's new and fresh, and that's sort of what drew me in. Now, it is a love story, and I am not a romance reader, so I was a bit hesitant to pick it up, but I'd seen so many good reviews and the space element just really drew me, and the thought of, you know, really great developed characters, that I decided to give it a chance, and I'm very glad I did. So this is actually a Waterstones exclusive with sprayed edges and lovely end papers. It's also signed. What's very annoying though is that you can see that there was a £3 off sticker which is like burnt in the cover, so any ideas on how to maybe remove that, let me know. But let's get into my thoughts on the book. I'll start off with some non-spoiler points, and then I'll really get into my real juicy thoughts and spoilers, but I'll let you know when I get to that bit. So obviously I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Obviously when I do book reviews, it's because I usually really enjoy them, and like I said, I was hesitant about this book, and for probably the first 2/3 I was like, this is an okay book for me. I wasn't, you know, really loving every character. I wasn't sort of, you know, really drawn in to the characters and the romance element. I was like, it's okay. I can see why everyone thinks it's good. You know, the plot setting is really well done. You know, the way it goes back and forth between the years, that's a really cool element. But it was just okay. And then it got to like the last 10 pages of the book, and I was sobbing. And I do not cry at books. I think I can only count 2 other books that I've ever cried at in my whole 29 years being on this planet, and this became the 3rd book. I was just tearing up, and then finished the last page and just sobbed. And Darren was like next to me in bed and like, are you okay? And I was like, it's such a lovely story. And I think then I just knew it. As soon as I started tearing up, I knew it was 5 stars. I knew that the writing had got to me, and I hadn't really known it. I was more invested in the characters than I thought, and so that's why I suddenly like took a 180, I guess, on this book and thought, wow, yeah, that is good writing, good story, good characters, because it has made me feel that emotional and cry. So if you don't know, it's set in the 80s, and it follows Joan Goodwin, who is training to become one of the first female astronauts to fly with NASA. And along the way we get to know her crewmates, fellow astronauts, including Vanessa, who she possibly likes slightly more than a friend. And obviously this is the 80s, being sort of gay and lesbian, it's not really talked about. It's not really, well, it's frowned upon back in those days. And so it shows Joan as she sort of tries and understands herself and her feelings, and, you know, navigating that, as well as obviously trying to become an astronaut. And so at the very start of this book, we start out with Joan being Capcom within the Houston station, as she is talking up to the space shuttle, and she is talking to Vanessa on the shuttle. And at that point we know something really bad has happened, and so it starts off the bat with that, and then it then goes back in time to Joan just starting out, applying to be an astronaut, going through the training, meeting obviously fellow candidates, getting to know them all, getting to know Vanessa, and you're building up this bigger picture of the characters, and you kind of forget, almost like a prologue at the start. And it does flit a few times throughout back to sort of present day, which is 1984, when Joan is talking to Vanessa on the space shuttle, and it sort of brings you back to reality, that we've just met all these great characters, we're just getting to know them and their feelings and relationships, and now we're back on the space shuttle and we know that they're all in danger. So you're sort of conflicted throughout between getting to know these characters and then being like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen next, and that thriller element. I will say I would have liked slightly more of the book set in space, whether it be Joan's flight or Vanessa's flight. I just wanted more of that sort of thriller space sci-fi element, but it wasn't there. So I would have personally liked that, but if you're more of a romance girly, then that won't really bother you. Obviously, I forgot to mention, I'm in my full NASA attire because, you know, I have to. And I also found, when we went many years ago to the Kennedy Space Center, I found my little gold pin badge. And what I didn't know, and I've not known for years, is that obviously they get given little space shuttle badges, silver and then gold. So yeah, I bought that out as a little prop to take some photos. But yeah, that was quite cool to read that in the book and realise I've essentially got the pin that they kind of get given. I mean, I've not seen a picture of what that looks like, but I'm assuming it kind of looks like this. Yeah, and I've just looked on Goodreads actually, just to see if, make sure I'm not forgetting anything, and a lot of people are kind of saying the same. If you want to go into this book thinking it's going to be heavy on space, it's kind of not. It's more down on the ground and, you know, relationship wise. So if you don't mind that, you're going to love it, and just bear that in mind going in. But for me, as someone who's not a romance girly, I still gave it 5 stars, so always worth taking a chance. Will I read other Taylor Jenkins Reid books? Probably not. It was literally just the space element that drew me in, otherwise I probably wouldn't have picked it up. Maybe in the future I might pick up another one of hers, but I don't think I would actively go out and buy any of her other books. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on the book itself before I get into spoilers. So if that sort of takes your fancy, click out of this video now, because the rest of it's going to be full spoilers, and brace yourself. So for me, this was one of my first books, I think, actually reading about 2 female gay characters. I've read about male gay characters before, but this was my first female one, and you know, that doesn't bother me. What bothered me was how frustrating it was. Joan and Vanessa sort of tiptoeing around their feelings, over analysing each other. You know, I felt like just like shaking them and being like, just say you love each other, get it over with, and like get on with your relationship. Like, that is how I felt. And obviously back in the 80s they couldn't sort of flounce it about, so we sort of felt what it was like to be gay in that period of time and having to hide it from colleagues and you know, your employer and general society and family. So that was that part. Like I said, this book is probably 80% romance, storytelling of Joan and her family and Vanessa, with 20% actually being up in space with the actual shuttles. So like I said, I would have liked it to be a bit more evenly balanced. The ending just broke me. When Joan and Vanessa are talking to each other in their sort of final moments, and you know, is it Antonio, her boss, is like, he sort of knows, and he's like, just tell her what you feel, and they kind of do it in code a little bit, so the wider people listening don't quite get it, but to each other they can convey exactly what they want to say, kind of. You know, that I was just tearing up at that bit, and then obviously Joan breaks down when she thinks she's died, and then she comes back on the intercom and she's saved Lydia, and I was just like bawling my eyes out. Yeah, and I thought it ended perfectly. Like, I didn't need any more. I was quite happy with it to end there. I didn't need to see how their relationship developed, and if they came out more to, you know, their wider colleagues, or like, I was fine where it was left. I just needed to know that Vanessa was okay, and yeah, I guess I would have maybe liked a little bit more conclusion towards the end on how Joan and Francis maybe will get on long term, but it was kind of nice that Joan did get to kind of take custody of Francis as well, because Barbara kind of upped and left them. So I hope you enjoyed seeing my review of Atmosphere. Let me know if you've got it this far, you've obviously read the book, what you thought of it. And yeah, make sure you subscribe. Go follow me on TikTok. I'll leave a link down below because I'm putting more like book related shorts there and bookish content. So if you like that, head over there. And yeah, I will see you very soon. Bye guys.